point anyway is that I like for my discussions to be very interactive. So I don't think you're just going to sit there. I'm going to make you work as well, okay? But the reason I titled my talk this morning just because I want to talk a little bit about several things that hopefully will be applicable to you guys. I want to talk about some of the science behind errors and safety system failures in hospitals, in pharmacies, in any type of organization really. It doesn't have to do just with healthcare, but also want to look at how your job functions as pharmacy techs play into national patient safety goals and how we can kind of interpret those to be applicable to your job, whether you're in retail pharmacy or a hospital pharmacy. And then just look at how you can identify some areas of concern in your workplace. Okay? So the whole science behind safety has to do with what's called human factor analysis. You can go out and you can get a degree in human factor analysis if that's really what you want to get into. Work for NASA, the aeronautic industry, because they're kind of the leaders in safety these days. But there are a couple of things that kind of play into that. The science itself, and then the mission, vision, and values of the organization that you work in, as well as your own personal values and beliefs. So, we're going to do a little activity here to start with. I told you it was going to be interactive because I want to keep you involved. Your job today is you're a nice group of people and you love helping others. So we have loaded, I'd say we have loaded an airplane with medical supplies that we're going to take to a foreign country to help underprivileged. Unfortunately, because of our plane being overloaded, we are going to have a little crash landing here. But that's okay, because there's supplies on the plane that you guys have access to. There's the forward hole and the aft hole, and you can choose either one or whatever you'd like to do to pick out supplies to help you survive. However, since the plane has crashed, you only have 10 minutes to make your decision, which supplies you're going to take and that kind of thing. So you can pair up in let's say, want this side be a group and this side be a group. And what I'm going to let you do is just look at this list of items. You can decide together which hole you'd like to access, the aft hole or forward hole, and which supplies you'd like to take with you. Right, so I'm going to give you 10 minutes to do that. So you can talk among yourself. It's either hole, the aft hole or the forward hole. And no issues or safety issues as far as that's concerned.
What? Our plane's crashing.
You need
and we have to pick which
10 items
which
that you would take with you, or to help you survive.
So we can only pick them from one side.
Yeah, we only have time to go to one end.
You only have time to go to one.
So we can pick 10 things off of one end.
Okay, you guys wrapping it up there?
Yeah, we're done.
You're done? Okay, so who picked the aft hole? Anybody? No, so both guys picked the forward hole? Why? Why did you pick that?
There seemed to be more things that we could, practical, that we felt that we could use. We're assuming somebody's coming looking for us soon. So.
Okay. Why did you guys pick that?
I felt like if you only had a certain amount of time, you can't go to both of them, you got to grab and go.
Yeah.
And all the stuff in the aft hole was big stuff. We weren't going to be able to carry some of that stuff. And it wasn't as practical as some of the stuff in the forward hole.
So the things you picked out of the forward hole were easy to carry?
Practical, easy to
things.
carry.
All right. Okay. So the whole point of the exercise is that you were thinking about what you were going to take, right, to make it easy for you. But the underlying problem that you had to decide was whether you were going to go or whether you were going to stay there. Because the things that were in that act folder were if you were going to build a shelter and you were planning on staying where you crash landed for who knows how long it's going to take them to find you, right? As opposed to the forward hold, which had things that you could carry and you could hike out of where your plane crashed at. So that's kind of, I mean, I know you probably weren't thinking about that. Where am I going to go? Where am I going to stay?
We actually stated that. We assumed.
We assumed that, and we also looked at the stuff that's over here on the app. And we can see, you got 10 minutes to get out, and you got your 5-gallon barrel of water.
Roll it.
But you got other things you gotta pick up.
Right. But there's
So-
more than one. But
And
again,
then most of this over here is tools.
mhm.
So you're really looking at staying in the area and building stuff.
Right. Right. So yeah, that underlying thought was that I'm either going to leave or I'm going to stay. Just like in our mission, and values and weird science, there's a lot of underlying things that are going on there that you don't necessarily think about when you're making decisions. And I'm sure you've all heard, and I've heard it too, that the #1 priority for our organization is safety. Right? That's what we hear all the time. But in reality, as the little cartoon says here, we do have some profit stashed in the Cayman Islands because really our top priority is money, right? Hopefully not. But it really comes back to what our values are based upon. For example, you guys work in a pharmacy, and let's say that you were working your 12-hour shift today, and you were busting your buns, getting everything done that you need to get done. You only had time to have a lunch break. You didn't take time for like a 10-minute break, you would drink and go to the bathroom, but things were just so busy that you didn't have time to do anything else. And you're just exhausted at the end of your shift. Just exhausted. And on top of that, you were up most of the night because your child at home was sick, throwing up, vomiting, and you were with them the whole time. But finally, the end of your shift has come, and you're headed home. You jump in the car, and you're headed home, but you decide, I'm just going to make one stop before I get home. So you make one stop, and then you get back in your car, and you're headed home. You travel the same road every day, so you know that it's very familiar to you. And you come to the stop sign, and just because you're so tired, you just go right through the stop sign. So, should you get a ticket?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you get caught, yeah.
If you did not. But the other thing to keep in mind is that this is the street into your neighborhood. You know there's never traffic on that other part of the intersection that you just rolled through. So does that impact your decision at all? Whether it should. But even though you're dead tired, and you know, sometimes we're tired and we just pass things and we don't even realize we passed them because we do this every day. You know, I've driven home sometimes and think, I don't remember passing that. Yeah. You know, so, but, okay, so you say, some of you say that I should get a ticket. What about if that stop I made on the way home was at a restaurant and I decided I just have 2 glasses of wine? Just to really unwind and relax a little bit so when I get home, I can face that child again that's been sick and whatever other responsibilities I have at home.
If you had 2 glasses of wine, that's probably the reason you didn't stop at the stop sign.
Could be, but it's two glasses of wine really gonna make that much difference.
Put on top of being tired, oh yeah.
For me, yeah.
So should we arrest this person and put him in prison or in jail then?
Yes.
This for going through a stop sign.
Drinking and driving, yes, very much so.
All right. But what if I'd gone through that stop sign and I hit a car and killed somebody.
Very much so.
Involuntary manslaughter.
But is that my fault because I was so tired? Did I work in an organization that allowed me to have a break that I should have had? Was there enough staff there to make sure that I wasn't running like crazy? Or should I have just called in the morning because I've been up all night?
Well, they put the law in place for our safety and for others.
Right, exactly. So we're rule of eight, isn't it? All right, and then one more example I'll ask you. Just for instance, somebody takes you to court and for whatever reason, but you win the judgment is in your favor. Would you say that that person who's suing you or brought you to court should have to pay your legal fees?
That's the way you set it up when you went into court.
I didn't say how to set up, I just say you think that would be fair for them to pay your legal fees. Since they're the ones who you, and you're obviously proven innocent, for whatever it was, should they pay your legal fees?
Who filed the charges?
I think she's a lawyer.
I mean, it's the way you set it up. It's the way you set it up. I mean, like if you take somebody to court and you file the charges and you say, and they pay court costs if you win, or if they, whoever wins pays court costs, then, or whoever loses pays court, whatever, you set it up that way.
So again, you're going back to how our systems are set up and that kind of thing. What if it was on the other, the judgment was on the other hand? You took somebody to court, and that person, should you have to pay the bills, the legal bills then? If it wasn't set up that way?
Each person pays their own.
Well, usually it's determined by someone of authority.
Right.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know, I've never been put in that situation.
And with all the frivolous lawsuits out there now, the court's trying to step in and stop them. So that's one thing they're looking at.
Right. But I think that goes back then to your own personal values. Is it fair for me to have to pay somebody else's legal fee if I lose the case, even though I have my own lawyer fees to pay, or vice versa? So it goes back to our values and in some point the way you were brought up and some of your thoughts as far as everything else is concerned. So a lot plays into our values. And the number one thing that plays into the safety value in the organization that you work in is that organizational culture. Is safety a priority in your organization? Do they have systems set up that recognize possible potential errors and ways to fix those? Are there systems set up so that if you identify an issue, that you have a means to let other people know that there's a problem that somebody needs to work on? In your pharmacy, is there a mechanism set up that if you see something come in from a manufacturer that you know is a safety hazard, is there some way that you can make that known to the company and hopefully get that corrected? For example, we have a nurse that gave a medicine to a patient that was out of date. The date on the package was embossed on the vial, and it's right there when you peel it off the top so you can open the vial. And it said 04/14/2015 on the label. She looked at it very quickly, said, okay, April 14, 2015 expires. Wow, because of the way it was embossed on the label, the 04/14 was the expiration date, and the 2015 was the lot number. So whose fault is that?
Pharmacy.
Pharmacy. Good guys, thanks for taking the point. All right, so see, she was kind of set up, and you guys were kind of set up because it was there. I mean, I probably could have looked at it very easily and said, well, that's the expiration date. So, so sometimes our systems do fail us, but we have all these things that kind of build into that. Both our colleagues that you work with are there to help you make things safe. Your organization's there to help make things safe and set up systems so that you don't have to worry about it. And even your family and your beliefs impact all the safety issues that come out there before us. You know, we talked about the manufacturers and how they can be part of both part of the problem and part of the solution as far as that's concerned. Whoever came up with the child-proof bottle, the children can open them very easily, right? Or thinking about the sausage rollers, those sound alike, look alike, high alert medications are very, very problem prone. What we have phenobarbital and pentobarbital here, which sound a lot alike. How do we prevent people from making errors using those drugs? Is labeling them as a high alert medicine enough? Should we keep them separated when we dispense them into the hospital? Do we put them in the same drawer in the Pyxis or the automated dispensing machine? You know, how do we prevent people from having that error? How much responsibility of that goes back to the manufacturer? How do they know there's an issue?
We have to let them know.
Yes, we have to let them know. And there's lots of things ways that we can do that, to make sure they do that. For sure. Some of the other things that you can do in your own work is to make sure that you can identify risk. I don't think this is in your handout. Like I said, the culture of safety is very important. Do you have a manager, do you have an organization that supports that culture of safety? Do they do things that make you sure that that is truly what they do? Do they encourage you to report errors? Do they encourage you to report system failures, or to give them ideas of how you can make things better and improve them? If it's just, you know, the way you have your shelves organized in the pharmacy, to prevent you from reaching up too high and accidentally grabbing the wrong thing. Or is the flow all wrong so that you're having to walk across people to do your job? Or is the actual environment bad? Is the lighting poor? Is it cluttered? Is it dirty? Because you know, if you're more prone to make problems and to have a, how do I put this, not as good attitude. If you work in a place that's dirty and cluttered and disorganized, because you think, well, it doesn't matter, nobody else cares, why should I? So you need to look at those kind of things as far as helping you to prevent errors and decrease your risk. We talked about staffing, you know, is there adequate staffing for that? In the reporting of errors, are there system issues that you have in your system? I know here at the hospital we have several machines, and don't ask me how they work, I don't work in the pharmacy, that like package and label our drugs. Of course, the Simplify, I think it is, machine that does that. And I've seen several incidences arise from that because medications are labeled wrong. How does that happen? Is it somebody putting that information in that did it wrong? Nobody checked it? So that, you know, is that a system error? Is that a human error? Does that come back to that? I'm being rushed to get things done. We've got to get all these medicines out to 45 Pyxis machines in the organization today. Get all that done, get all these drugs labeled. So is that an issue, a system issue? And I will tell you that even though safety is a priority in most organizations, when it comes down to the bottom line, production always trumps safety. And you know, that's one of the things I work on daily to see how we can fix that. But because the bottom line is you got to get this job done, and you got to get it done now, we sometimes cut corners, which is not a good thing, because that bypasses our safety mechanisms, which we don't want to do.
Steve, you've been in healthcare for a long time. I mean, you're not an old man. I'm just saying you've been in it for a long time. I've been in it, Connie. I mean, most of us have been in it for a long time. And I don't know if it's that I'm getting older and slower or everything is just getting faster. And it's like, you're right, you know, the hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry, gotta get this done, gotta get this done. Not that somebody's standing over you saying, hurry, 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 but you know in your mind, you have all this to get done before 3:30 and you can't have any overtime and you gotta get this done, that you do cut corners, you know, and I don't know what happened from 20 years ago to now, to make it that way.
They cut back on personnel and dumped all that work on the few people that are left. So
More with less.
you're given a whole lot more work and a lot fewer people.
And it's the same with nursing. I mean,
Oh,
I
it's
don't know
even worse
about
in nursing.
in your hospitals or where you work, but, you know, that's the truth.
Yeah.
It is.
It's work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
And
times
technology
we heard
is
that.
also
Yeah.
changing,
Yeah.
because
Exactly.
when you think about technology, you know, the things that are centered around that, it takes more manpower to actually do those jobs for that piece of technology that they have implemented in your system.
Right.
So truly, it is the technology and all the other factors that lead into that, which makes it more demanding on that one individual when you only have 2 people working.
Exactly.
I'll give you a good example on that, military-wise. Fort Bragg, we, in 2000, had 8 military and 3 civilians. 2012, we had 2 civilians and 2 military. And the job didn't decrease. In fact, it increased.
All right.
So that puts more pressure on us to get things done, but at the same time, we have to be careful because we get mistakes made and we pay a pretty price on that.
Exactly, we do.
So how do we fix that? I mean, that's your job, I guess.
Exactly. It's part of my job, and it's part of your job.
Right.
Because really, patient safety, staff safety, it's
Right.
everybody's job, not just the patient safety officer in the organization. So it's your job, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, is to make sure that you speak up, that, you know, you stand up for your rights, that you, if you have a problem and your pharmacist or your manager is not responding to that, that you take it up the chain of command.
Well, for one thing, I know you're not supposed to say 4-letter words, but the word wait, 4-letter word. It really is, and people don't like to wait. I know the infusion center, we've got a couple patients over there. If they have to wait 5 more minutes for something, I mean, you'd think it was the end of the world.
You're right.
And you, how many times have you heard, well, I'm gonna go to this hospital and you don't have to wait as long?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, and
My hospital has implemented, every department is supposed to do it, and pharmacy is starting, we do a huddle board. And we meet, well, pharmacy just got renovated, ours isn't up, but we still meet, and everybody has to lead it. Everybody takes turn, pharmacists and technicians alike. And you find out if there's OR cases, how many there are, if there's any IVCs, which in Pender County, we have a lot of involuntary commitments that stay in the ER for days. And if there's any of them that need attention, if there's any, how many IV admixtures we have. And one of the questions is there any safety patient issues that you know about? Is there any employee safety issues that you know about? So people do every morning at 9:30, no matter what you're doing, you stop and come to this one meeting area in the pharmacy. And so it is one of the two of the questions, and then they go down the row, you know, what can I, who needs the most support today? How can I help you today? And stuff like that, but.
And how often are those questions answered?
There stuff does come up, pharmaceutical shortages, supply, and I'm the pharmacy buyer, so of course all the eyes turn to me every day, and it's like, yeah, Toralac is still on back order, yeah, Zosyn's still on back order, you know, so it's just all of these criteria that, and I don't know exactly what the nursing ones are because they have all their own huddle boards, but that's the pharmacy huddle board. And we're managed by New Hanover Regional Medical, which is a huge hospital in Washington. And that's something that they do, so they've implemented it in Pender. We're a very small county hospital, but they've implemented it in Pender. And you wouldn't think just a staff of 7 would have to do that. You would think, well, you all see each other every day. You've only in this, our pharmacy is no bigger than this room, you know, our entire pharmacy.
Ours was.
We got renovated. We didn't get any more space, but we got renovated. We have new shelves for the first time in 35 years, but But it is a good thing. It is a good thing to be able to bring up those things.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that, because that's one of the national patient safety goals, is
The fact
effective
of the matter is,
communication.
though, we all guilty, if you really want to look at it that way, because, you know, we only really recognize it when we're on the opposite end. But who haven't been to the microwave and like, what are they cooking, a turkey? You know, how long what do they got in there? It's 5 minutes. When
Yes.
have you ever been able to get a whole meal in 5 minutes? But if you're on the second person in line, it's like, how long are you gonna, what? And you know, then God forbid you gotta put it back in there again for them another 2.5 and let it sit for a minute. And it's like you got to be on the chopping block, you know? But it's like, how long? How long is this light? Good Lord.
Right.
You know, if somebody don't come to the window as soon as it ring the first time, they like bing, 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 bing.
Right.
You know?
And that's another determinant of how much we are, because we're all concerned, especially in hospitals, about patient satisfaction, because that impacts how many people come into our organization as clients, or in your pharmacy. If you have people that are upset with you, or in a retail pharmacy, are they going to continue to come there, or are they just going to switch their prescription somewhere else?
You know, we have a flyer made up, usually it goes to the nurse, so the nurse can kind of explain it to the patient, but it's why chemotherapy is not like a drive-through or ordering a milkshake. You know, you get the flavor wrong in a milkshake, no big deal.
Right.
You get it wrong, and so it kind of makes its point. It's kind of a humorous
Right.
flyer, but it makes its point.
Exactly.
But then you'll go out there and you'll hear the nurse say, well, it just depends on how fast the pharmacy gets the drugs out of your teeth.
Yeah.
Well, you just put them through. It just came through. Really, we're supposed to have technically 30 minutes to get it out there too.
Right.
And I don't know how long they've been sitting out there. You'll hear a nurse explaining it to a patient and not doing anything against nursing, because they've got a lot on them too. But it's just like, we'll have 8 patients come through. We don't have enough hoods to put all that medicine in. I mean, and some of them people are getting 5 and 6 drugs, you know?
Right.
And that's what I always talk to Rob about, how unsafe this is. This is so unsafe. But 10:30, they all come through.
Right. Exactly.
He said, but we'll be done at 3:30. And I said, yeah, but it's ain't safe.
One of
Yep,
y'all made a
because
good
we're all
point
rushed.
about patient or customer satisfaction, patient satisfaction. But management doesn't seem to understand that it's not just the customer that needs to be satisfied, it's the employees that need to be satisfied so that they can provide that customer satisfaction.
Right.
They're just worried about that almighty bottom dollar and getting that excellent on that little test that they hand out. But if your employees are miserable, they're not going to produce that excellent.
Right, exactly.
And they haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, and that's part of that whole organizational culture that
Yeah.
we're talking about, that determines how safe you're going to be, because, again, production trumps safety, unfortunately, most of the time. And that we want to be in a safe organization. We want an organization where management supports that safety culture, where they support staff and make sure the staff is adequate for the busy days that you have, or they have some contingency plan in place. If you have 3 people that call in sick today, what are you going to do? And so that all impacts how we deal with safety. And all of that's based, of course, upon our safety science, organizational safety, is all based upon, hopefully, evidence to support the things that we're doing. You know, because evidence-based practice, and I'm sure you've heard this buzzword lots of times out there in the medical profession, we all practice evidence-based in our organizations. But what is evidence-based practice? That's part of the science behind what we do. What is that? Well, evidence-based practice is using the latest science and technology that's out there with supporting reasoning behind that, as well as the experience of the practitioner. You know, it's important, the things that you know you've gained through experience, things that I've gained through experience, that physicians have gained, the pharmacists have gained through experience, as well as your personal beliefs and values, all play into evidence-based practice. For example, this is not really a pharmacy example, but if you have a patient that's getting chemotherapy, well, let's say, let's back that up a little bit. The patient comes in, the physician tells them, you've got cancer. What I'm going to do is give you chemotherapy, and your chances of survival are going to be 60%, even with that chemo. And the patient says, I don't want it. Should the physician insist, oh yeah, you know, you have a 60% survival rate, you should have it? Or should we honor those values of that patient? You know, and that's, again, you know, we have to take into account our values, the organization value, and make sure that those are good values, and not judge someone because of their choices, if that's truly the choice that they want to make. And that goes back to safety and the fact that, you know, mistakes don't happen because you intentionally make a mistake, right? Nobody here wants to make a mistake. But our systems are set up so that they fail us. They set us up to fail. You know, we have double checks in the pharmacy. We have automation in the pharmacy to help prevent those errors from occurring. But we still have those errors occurring. Why?
You got humans involved.
Because we're human, yeah. So if you make a mistake and I come back and blame you for doing something wrong, is that a just and justifiable discipline action?
Well, I'm not perfect,
Well, that's what I'm saying.
but if I do it over and over and over and over and over, I don't need to be there.
Right. Right. And that's kind of some of the evidence that we base our safety philosophy on, is that wasn't it intentional error? Most of the time our errors are the result of a system failure. So let's look at the process that led up to that error and see if we can change that process. Because of your rush to get things done, did you take a shortcut and bypass our safety measures? Then you know, you shouldn't have done that. So how can we change that whole process so that you don't have to have that shortcut? But if you intentionally make an error, yes, then you should be punished for it. And I think most organizations have that just culture philosophy that, you know, yeah, let's look at the reason behind it and not punish you. Let's not put it in your personnel file that you made a mistake when it was something that we set you up to fail as.
If you intentionally make
You
a
intentionally
mistake,
make a mistake.
who would intentionally make a mistake?
Well, you know, there are things that happen, like we have diversion,
Okay.
you know, that occurs. People purposely take things and
Oh, okay.
do
But
that.
what if you have 10 people that do the same job, they all do it over and over again and they don't make a mistake, but one person continually makes the same mistake, then if 10 people are making the error, that's a system error. But if one person is only doing it, then
Right.
shouldn't you
Yes.
recommend that?
Then we should, in our annual
Whether it's
competencies.
intentional or not, it seems
Yes.
like it's
And yes, we do look for
a
trends.
competence issue.
Right, it is a competency issue. We do look for trends. And you're right, if she continues to make a mistake, or anybody continues to make a mistake, then you have to do some counseling. You offer retraining, whatever you need to do. And if it's not correct, then yes, we will terminate that problem. You know, because we, after all, our primary value is safety. You know, so we're going to get rid of those problems if they are consistent problems. But working with humans, we all realize that we're all going to make mistakes, so we have to work through those things. And that's part of our safety culture, is that yes, you get annual education. You have resources that you can draw upon to make sure that you don't make mistakes. You have a pharmacist there to double check your prescriptions that you're giving out, or the doses that you're doing, your calculations that you do together. You're not there alone. You have online helps that you can go to. You know, You have newsletters from the Institute of Safe Medicine Practice that you can look at. You have a lot of online things that you can do to do that. I'm sure you've all, because you're all up to date, I'm sure, on everything out there as far as the pharmacists can do. Seeing this website that the FDA's put out there now so that you can go and find out all the things that are on shortage now as far as medications are concerned, so that you can be up to date and knowledgeable about those drugs. Plus, it does go back to your background and your training. Are you competent to do that job that you're doing? Have you been trained in how to operate the Simplify machine, how to operate the glove box, how to operate in the airflow hood? Have you been properly trained on how to do all of that to keep you from making mistakes? Are you checked periodically to make sure that you're competent, still up to date, and being able to do that? That's all part of that evidence base and part of that practice that we have to be involved with. All right. Any other comments about that? So I'm going to move on here, and we're going to talk a little bit about the National Patient Safety Goals. The National Patient Safety Goals started back in 2002 and became into effect in 2003. The National Patient Safety Goals are established by a group called the Patient Advisory Group that advises the Joint Commission on things that they think that are pertinent to safety in hospitals and pharmacies and nursing homes, yada, yada, yada. And it's made up of various professionals, pharmacists, nurses, doctors, scientists, all these people that have that hands-on experience that you would like to be able to depend upon to make sure that everything is safe as far as our patients are concerned. And they also advise the Joint Commission on sending out sentinel alerts, which I'm sure you're familiar with. They come out with look-alike, sound-alike drugs and those kind of things that they kind of send out there for you to be aware of. So, let's talk about those National Patient Safety Goals and my interpretation of how those would affect you as a pharmacy tech. Because I know they're really geared more towards the whole organization and not just you as an individual. So the first National Patient Safety Goal is that we use 2 patient identifiers when providing care, treatment, and services for our patients. All right, so those of you on the retail side of pharmacy probably have to do this a little more than those pharmacy techs in hospitals, unless you have a retail pharmacy in your hospital. So how do you know that you're giving the medications to the right patient? Now, I always wondered when I go to a pharmacy and pick up prescriptions for my wife, and they said, I said, do you have a prescription for so-and-so? And they say, yes, so they get that, and they say, okay, can you tell me her date of birth? So I thought, okay, is that their 2 identifiers? How do they know that I'm really the person that should be picking up these medicines? And what if it were a narcotic? Would they give it to me? So I just always wondered about that. How do you know that you're doing that to the right patient?
They'll ask you for your driver's license if it's narcotic.
Yeah, for ID. Well, I have to pick up my child's ADHD medicine. They ask me for my ID, so that's a controlled substance. So I know that because they want to know who picks up that kind of stuff. I learned that the hard way. I left my wallet in the car one time. I just brought in my credit card.
Oh, okay. But by the same token, if you're pulling medication for a Pixis machine, or if you're picking medication for the patient-specific drug, how do you double check that that's really the drug that should be going to the patient? Are you trusting that pharmacist who tells you, pull this? You know, or if you're admixing IV, those of you in the hospital, and you get your mix directions from the pharmacist, are you familiar enough with the solutions that are routinely used for that admixture? So that if you're mixing up and there's a normal request to mix that in something different, that you would question it, or are you just going to take it in blind faith because that's what he told me to mix it, or she told me to mix it?
Most time we say, why? You know, well, why did you change this? Because it's always been mixed in dextrose. Why are you want me mixed in saline?
And that goes back to your background and your experience. Yes, to make sure that you get that right for the patients that are out there. Right? Okay. We talked about communication. That's one big thing for the entire organization for the pharmacy. But in medicine, it has a little bit more to do with critical test values. But I will tell you that most of the time when we find mistakes, errors, that one of the top things I hear, and you'll hear in most safety organizations, is that communication is not good. You know, they didn't tell me this, or I was in a rush and I missed that, or you know, it was a phone order and they didn't tell me, we didn't read it back, so I wasn't sure I got all the information correct. So communication is always a big, big issue. And when you're in the pharmacy, and especially again in the retail pharmacy, do you think about when you hand that prescription to a patient about asking them questions? I know you always ask, would you like to talk to the pharmacist for some counseling? And how many people say yes? You know, but when you're giving them that prescription, do you maybe take a second or two and say, this is your blood pressure medicine. Do you check your blood pressure every day? You know, or if they're on a blood thinner, you know, are you getting your blood checked so often to make sure that you're not overdosing or underdosing? Or if it's in the middle of summer and they're a big gardener, has your diet changed recently? Do we need to talk about that? Those kind of things that helps that communication go back and forth and make sure that your patient's getting what they need as far as the drugs that they're getting. Labeling, not so much in procedural areas, but how do you label medications? I will give you an example that recently occurred here. So I know we're not perfect, unfortunately, but we try. That a physician had a CPO order, went in for 80 milligrams of Lasix, IV. Somehow, in that translation, pharmacy put it, I'm going to say pharmacy, I'm not going to say pharmacist or whoever, put it in, and it got filled as 80 milligrams of Lasix PO, liquid, in a syringe. Went through the checks, obviously, right? Got to the floor. The nurse goes in to give it to the patient because the order says IV. She goes in to give it to the patient, and the syringe doesn't fit on the IV tubing. Thank God. You know, so why did that happen? Was there inadequate communication there? Was that a mid-safety problem with labeling? Those oral syringes, I know they have that little writing on them for oral use only. But should there have been another label on there saying for PO administration only? So I'm making it your job, so if you see those things happen, if you see an oral syringe leaving the pharmacy, make sure it's properly labeled, that it's identified as what it should be used for. Or if you're in a retail pharmacy, you make sure that it has a label on there for, if it needs to be refrigerated, or if it needs to be taken with food, or whatever those instructions are on that label, that those directions are clear for your patient.
I think it's our responsibility to, like Connie said, if we notice something that seems a little askew, it's our responsibility to question.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, we can do it respectfully. We don't have to be like, what in the world were you thinking? I mean, we can be respectful with it, but we do have the right and the obligation to question if something seems odd.
Right. Exactly. It is your job.
See, that's always been my concern about places that get rid of this one because they've been here so long and hiring all these new people. There's something to say for longevity because there's where your smarts are. You've been doing this for 20 years and you know what you're doing. Well, they bring somebody new in, stick them in the IV room. Well, they don't know beans about whether it goes in saline or dextrose. They don't know that it's, the norm for this. And they don't know to question. They just do what they're told.
Right.
And that goes back to the training though, too.
Yeah.
It does go back to
But I've seen where they'll hire new people and they'll be there less than a week or a week and stick them in the IV room and say, here you go, make these IVs. I mean,
Egos need to go out the door sometimes too. People think you're questioning them, and you're not. You're questioning the situation and what's going on. It's nothing personal. You're trying to protect the patient, not their ego.
Right, and that's the bottom line.
And I think
And I mean, I would bring my own screw up forward just as fast as somebody else's, and I've done it many times before. Wait, whoa, stop that. I screwed that up. And then I've also sat there and panicked, you know, because I gave 10 times more of something that was a look-alike, sound-alike, and prayed, you know, Lord, please let this person live. And thank God he was able to handle it.
Right.
But, you know, I was on pins and needles the whole time, and the pharmacist's like, no, that's not, you know, you're not, your license is not in the license. I'm like, the hell with the license. I'm the one that would be killing him if it happened.
Yeah,
Don't worry
personally.
about that.
Yes, exactly.
So, you know, it's, forget the ego, forget the license. I'm the one that did it.
Right,
So, you know,
exactly.
Well, I think sometimes as we begin to rely on technology, sometimes it's almost as if technology can have as many faults as humans can. We have care packages, and the doctor pick a care package and they plug it in, and it has a whole series of drugs that this patient will be getting. Well, you know, sometimes they change, they update the software and things change. And,
Exactly.
I mean, you just never know. What you think you're getting out may not be what you're really getting on the labels.
Right. And since we are so computerized and so automated these days, that we kind of become dependent upon that. And that, well, you know, the computer double checked my calculations, and we can't always be 100% certain of that, because, you know, the systems are only as good as the people who put them together and the people putting the information into them. And again, it goes back to that human factors. We are all human, and it could, we all make mistakes. Maybe the pharmacist accidentally put in that order incorrectly. I didn't do it intentionally, but here I have, you know, a whole screen of orders that are due in the next 30 minutes because they're all stat. So we have to deal with those kind of issues. And then we talked a little bit about, this was anticoagulation therapy and the safety that goes along with that. And again, this kind of goes back with that, to me, to that education part and how you deal with that. You know, if you're dispensing in a retail pharmacy and you get a patient for Daxa, you make sure that you tell them that, you know, you're not supposed to open this capsule so it's easier to swallow. You know, because opening that little capsule and taking it that way increases the bioavailability of that drug by like 75%. So, you know, you're increasing the risk of bleeding stuff with that. So we have to make sure that we know those kind of things. And again, if they're taking warfarin therapy, that we kind of ask, are you getting your blood checked frequently? Don't just assume that it's the pharmacist's job, because, like I said, I'm not going to come back and pick up my prescription. Say, oh, go and talk to the pharmacist because I have questions. I'm going to go home. You know, most of us are internet savvy these days. We'll go home and look at questions again. But I'm not going to ask, because that makes me look stupid. All right. Again, that communication stuff we talked about, and improve. This is the newest National Patient Safety Goal, and actually doesn't go into place until 2016. Is management and safety that deals with alarms. I don't know how you deal with that in the pharmacy. How often do your alarms go off? Because here, I don't want to other places, but like here, all of our medication refrigerators are monitored in the pharmacy. If the temperature drops, there's supposed to be an alarm. You know, if the Simplify machine malfunctioned, it alarms. How do you know that that's, you know, how do you respond to this? How do you manage this? How do you know that all the other equipment that you're dealing with is in the maintenance that should be, all those scales? How do you make sure that those are calibrated and that you're truly giving you the weight that you're supposed to have when you're doing that mixtures and stuff and calculating doses? Is there some type of system in place to monitor that, preventive maintenance? All these things that go along with that. Are you part of the safety committee? Because we use Alaris pumps here, and they have guardrails on them. And we have a committee that monitors those parameters on all the drugs that go into those pumps. And there's no reason that you can't be on that committee or a safety committee or organization to help make sure that those things occur in that organization. This National Patient Safety Goal has been here forever, so I don't really need speak to that very much, that, you know, in healthcare, the most important thing you can do is hand washing. But I will say that sometimes, again, because we're in a rush, do we always wash your hands? And this, again, show my, but Florence Nightingale, you know, the founder of nursing, that was one of the first things that she really pushed for, was hand washing and hand hygiene and hygiene. And we're still struggling with that 200 years later. You know, come on, let's get it right, people. Because I've seen people, yeah, you know, I'm wearing gloves, why do I need to wash my hands? You know, I'm just going to take them off. It's not like I'm dealing with something dirty. Right? But it's still a very, very important thing that you do in the pharmacy, that you make sure you wash your hands, make sure you wear those gloves if you're working in the glove boxes or in the hood, and that you wash your hands after you take your gloves off. All right? Risk assessment, the organization identifies those things that are at risk. How does that apply to you guys? We'll go back to those similar medications and how you deal with those, making sure they're properly segregated, they're properly labeled, yada, yada, yada. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to move on. Universal precautions. This is, again, one of the very first national patient safety bills that came out, which means that you're always going to do the right thing every time, using the right equipment that you have, making sure that it's for the right person. To go with that, I have in your handout, and I'm not going to read it because, like I say, I am running out of time. There's on the back a set of agreements. I think if you read through those, if you apply those agreements to your everyday work environment, that you will be doing this universal precaution thing every day to make sure that you get that done. And I especially like the, you know, agreement number 3 and number 4, that don't make assumptions, is what do you do when you make assumptions, right? And you have the courage to speak up and ask questions, right? And always do your best. And doing your best may change depending upon your current state of affairs, what's happening in your life. You know, are you sick? Are you well? Are you having family problems at home? But always do your best. And if you're always doing your best, then you have nobody to complain about if something happens and you've done your best. Okay? So do that. Okay. So this is what we've talked about. Some of the science behind errors and system failures and how we can hopefully identify some of those and improve upon those, whether it's going through the chain of command, talking to our sales reps, talking to manufacturers, if they need to change packaging, and identify some of those concerns that you have in your workplace, such as whether it's understaffing, lighting, clutter, making sure that you have your training, you have competency going on, that kind of thing. So I'm just going to leave you with one thought here. We were trying it before to make sure of it.
Oh, nice and good.
Oh, I don't need this. I'm already late.
Somebody will come. Anybody out there?
Do you have a phone?
No. Sorry. Somebody! Hello? There are 2 people stuck on an escalator and we need help. Now, would somebody please do something? I don't believe this. You gotta be kidding me.
I'm gonna cry.
No, well, there's enough left to do. That's it.
Hello. Hey, don't worry about it. I'll fix it in a second.
All right. All right. That's more like it. He says he can fix it.
Okay, question?